I am Mr. Ish and I'm welcoming all of you to this video, Rising Sea Levels, the Truth and Fallacy Behind That, a conceptual physics topic. That's what we're looking at today. Imagine what we have here is a beaker of water or a cup of water, and it represents our sea. We have a certain height, we've measured it, it's 20 millimeters. This is how much water we have. Now, if you take the same cup of water and you put in it a mass of ice, and we'll just look at it, a circular block of ice, we put it into this cup of water, what do you think has happened to that level of water in this cup? This right here is my block of ice. Well, we measure it and now we're seeing we have a 25 millimeter. We've measured it up from the base to the height, it's 25 millimeters. We have gained a 5 millimeter increase in the sea level. But this here is an artificial phenomenon because we put in that ice and that raised the level of that water. Why do you think the water level went up? Because if you think about ice in terms of a solid water, it has a certain density. The density of ice is less than the density of water because there's always trapped air and gas. But when it floats on water, or when you place it in water, there's a certain buoyancy that this mass of ice has. It has a certain weight which is equal to mass times gravity. And by virtue of its weight, by virtue of the effect of mg, you have a certain displacement which occurs when you put ice into sea, or when you put ice into this cup of water. That displacement is proportional to the amount of ice you've put in. What happens if I were to let this ice melt? When I've let this ice melt and I measure the water height, what do you think it will be? It's not going to be any higher than that. It won't be any lower than that. It'll be 25 millimeters. And why would that be the case? Because as this solid mass of ice melts and it shrinks over time, what is happening? The displacement that it caused in the water will decrease. But the amount of water which is coming out from the solid, water here from the solid phase going into the liquid phase, the amount of water that's now coming into the liquid phase, which is representing your sea, will be counteracted exactly by the amount you have seen here in the decrease in displacement by the melting of that ice. When this system here, you're examining it with the artificial block of ice you placed in, that entirely melts, you still have the same level of water after that melting procedure. But does this represent reality or nature? No, it doesn't. What would exactly represent our reality? It certainly is not this case. Our nature is represented by a case where we already have pre-existing masses of ice in water. And here we can see again, for the purposes of discussion, we're looking here at a sea level, a existing sea level of 20 millimeter, because all the icebergs and everything we have, the floating masses of ice, they're already present in the sea at the time of our recording sea levels. When these blocks of ice melt, as the temperatures go up, they're doomed to melt. The water level will always remain 20 millimeters. As I've told you, the reduction in the mass of this ice, the reduction in the buoyancy, the decrease in the displacement that it initially led to is countered by the transfer of the water molecules from the solid phase to the liquid phase. All of that is equivalent, all of that is equal, hence you don't see any rise. This here represents more accurately what is going on in nature. Yes, you can see in the winter time, the North Pole ocean, the sea over there, it will freeze, but that's already the water which was present in the existing system. It's freezing and it's coming to the top by means of the reduction in density, so it floats, but then in the summer it melts to a certain degree and the water is returned back from the solid to the liquid phase. Anytime you have melting of floating masses of ice, icebergs, all of that which was already present in water, you have no change in sea level as those masses melt over a period of time. Now this right here represents the truth behind what you see here. It's the fallacy that one assumes that the melting icebergs is leading to an increase in sea levels. That's the fallacy part. The truth obviously is, as the masses of ice will reduce over time, the sea level will not rise. Now we have to start asking the question, what exactly leads to a rise in sea level? The items which will lead to an increase in sea level are those blocks of ice which are located on land. Blocks of ice. These are the shelves, the continental shelves of ice. These are these items, frozen water which is located on land. Think about this. This is my land and it's going here into a shelf. This right here is my ocean. You have a large block of ice, or it could have been a large block of ice which is jutting out over the water. It's not touching the water, but it's over the water. You get a little increase in temperature, it breaks and it cracks and it lands in the water. Now this amount of ice will lead to a increase in sea level. It will, because this was amount of ice which had not led to any displacement of water to begin with. It was entirely located on land, or it was located above water but not in contact with water. When this block of ice here melts, which is located entirely on land, this is all water which is now going into the sea. This is a type of melting which leads to a sea level rise. Not anything which is pre-existing in the water in terms of floating masses of ice or iceberg. And remember, when this block of ice breaks into the water, you'll have a rise in the sea level, but as it melts, you're not going to have a reduction in that sea level, because as I've told you, the decrease in the displacement is counteracted by the increase in the melting of that water. As water is going from the solid to the liquid phase, the mass of that block is becoming less. It has a reduced buoyancy, it has a reduced mass, reduced effect of gravity. They equally counteract one another. You have an initial rise from the drop of this block into the water, but after it is melting or during its melting, you have no additional rise. The additional rise in water, or in the terms of the sea level, will come from this additional masses of ice which are located entirely on land, but they're melting and the water is flowing into the sea. So these are the truths and the fallacies you need to keep in mind when you're talking about rising sea levels. And that's it for this video. Thank you. Have a good day.